another epic episode. Guys, it's Tuesday, Jenny. It's Tuesday and we're back. And you remember we have a special, still running our special, our festive special. Today is the girl chat. We had 2 weeks, yeah. The guys leading the whole conversation. It was late, it was nice. So we're just gonna reflect on that. But yeah, before I get deeper into anything, welcome back, guys. Welcome. I miss you so much. You are watching Bay Waves, and I have new people today. I don't have my happiness with me, but I have new awesome people today. My name is Munagiri Tahazo, and I'll be hosting with some two other pretty ladies. I told you last time we're gonna bring in new faces, so they are here. They are here. I'm gonna start with Miss Nyeleti. Can you just introduce yourself? Like your best introduction.
Thank you so much, Tahazo. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to us this evening. My name is Nyeleti Baloyi. I'm a third year, next year is my final year, LLB law student at the University of Pretoria. I don't have many things that are interesting about me. One thing that's interesting about me is that I have a strong passion for children. Obviously, that translates to youth because essentially children are the future. I'm actually a children's ministry teacher. And I'm really excited to be with you this evening. I've been looking forward to this episode for so long, and I'm really hoping we'll be able to cultivate, good culture. We'll be able to engage and have conversations that are truly impactful to our youth. So thank you so much for this evening. Like Takata said, I'm not alone. She's not alone this evening. We have yet another third amazing co-host. This evening, I'll let her introduce herself.
Oh, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Buisi, where my surname is Jel. I'm from a small growing town, which is James. Okay, I'm a student doing mechanical engineering at Egerland West College, doing my first year there. Okay, let me talk about what I'm doing. I'm actually a commercial model, a motivational speaker, and again, a mentor to young girls and boys who are growing, especially when it comes to Faculty of Sciences, Science Expos, and other things. Again, I'm a passion-driven and confident young lady who's willing to build and improve young society in order to have better future and brighter future. Knowing that it takes a village to raise a child, I'm part of that village which is willing to have a great impact in our society. Again, I'm willing to be working with you throughout the session and everything. I hope we'll engage as time goes on. Thank you.
You guys are so amazing, guys. You remember it was the first was, I think it was the first episode, and we were talking about the future of the country. I mentioned, there's no youth educated as this youth. You can tell. Oh, okay, LLB. Guys, what's LLB? What's LLB?
It's Latin, actually. Most people can't pronounce it. I'm not gonna try it on air.
Because we sing LLB, but I have no idea what LLB stands for.
But essentially, it's Ligum Baccalaureus. I apologize for my pronunciation if I've offended any of my fellow colleagues. But essentially, it's Latin. I think everyone just kind of says LLB and then they say law to shorten it. But yeah, next year's my final year, so I'm very excited for 2022. Yeah, man. I mean, school is amazing and all. Like, it's truly something you enjoy, and as a young person, you should truly enjoy cultivating yourself. It's exciting to go into a classroom and learn something completely new that you had no idea about. But also, it's time to get out of the ghetto, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Madam Bui, how does someone get into commercial modeling? What's commercial modeling? What do you do?
Okay, in commercial modeling, we deal with beauty and clothing. Like we are living in a society where people like style, fashionable, getting to know new outfits. That's what we deal about clothing. Okay, let's say you're a tailor, you've got a certain design, new style. That's what we'll be engaging about commercial. Commercial is all about beauty and clothing. So we deal about style, fashion.
Okay, how does one get into that? Do I start just posting my pictures, or what's the process?
Let's say you have an agent. Okay, let's say it's a process for a person to be in commercial modeling. you need to have an agent first in order to be displayed on a big billboard. Because when you don't have an agent, it won't be easy to be recognized by people which are greater agents, I would say. But by posting your pictures, acting like, living like a model, a commercial model, people might get through you.
Okay. All right. That's nice. You guys are probably wondering where happiness is. Happiness will be reading comments. So everything and anything you want, or either broadcasted or anything that you want us to say it on air, you go there, talk to Happiness. She will talk to us, and we will talk to you. So do please talk to us. You are watching Bayways. Guys, I forgot my iconic line. Yo, guys, please go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, share, everything. We need the views, guys. And do go onto Facebook, do share the live airing. Because, yeah, we still need your views, guys, and we need your engagement. So I'm just going to hand it over to my co-host and my beautiful woman. What are we talking about today? What's up? What can we talk about today?
Okay, today we'll be talking about mental health, gender-based violence, toxic masculinity, and feminism and misogyny. So, okay, we'll be doing reflection on what the guys we've been talking about the previous week. We know that they've been sharing so many opinions, different thoughts about mental health. So how can we improve others' mental health while we are protecting our side? As like, Ringi, there's some things they've mentioned there and there. So how can we protect ourselves on that one?
One thing that touched me, one thing that stayed with me from the men's conference about mental health in relationships, I feel like men lack accountability, like as a whole, because they say your partner must make you feel like this, your partner must, guys, when are you gonna make yourself feel like anything? Regarding mental health of men, I think men are waiting on, like they're holding on to women as a crutch. Or no, now as a woman I have to come and think Bolose is hungry. Now as a woman in a relationship with Bolose, I have to come and like, no, Bolose is sad today. So from their whole conversation, I didn't exactly get to understand where they stand in their own mental health as men without blaming the society, because they're not the only ones who are under societal pressures. Like now, societal pressures are to take care, to nurture. Mara, we also take accountability for our own mentals and our own issues. So I feel like men still need to talk more about their mentals and just improve on them, improve on communicating and whatnot.
Okay.
Yes, I agree with you, Tahat. So I think there's still a long way to go with regards to men taking active accountability of their own mental health. And I think it's the only way for any improvement to be done in any aspect, any sphere of health, be it mental, emotional, in all our well-being. Everyone needs to be accountable for themselves. So I think the most important thing in any mental health conversation is someone being actively and acknowledging that they are responsible for their own mental health. Of course, there are these different pressures that surround us in society. There are always external factors that will influence essentially how you feel at any particular given time. But it is essentially your duty to take care of your own mental health. It's your duty to be able to shut out all these external factors that aren't necessarily important for you at that very point in time. I think mental health is yes, you should look at it in the long run, but you should also look at it at that very point in time. So in order to take care of your mental health, you should be able to think about how certain things affect you in that very moment and being able to look at it in the long run. So if you say that, like you gave an example about a relationship, if you feel like a certain relationship or a certain friendship, doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, even, platonic friendships, do in different ways influence a person's mental health. A person needs to be able to understand that you can't take care of another person's mental health before you take care of your own. And so even in this conversation, like you said, you felt men were speaking a lot about mental health, but speaking about how women should be able to positively affect their mental health. A person needs to be able to take accountability of the fact that your mental health starts with you. All these other people are external, and it's, you know, it's something on the outside. So you can't expect women to take care of your mental health when you aren't taking care of yourself, because essentially when you have a terrible state in your mental health, you are most likely to project that state that you have within yourself on other people. And so if, for example, I'm discontent with my life and that is affecting me, say I have depression or I have anxiety, it's very easy for me to walk into a room and the energy around me, you know, the energy I send off to other people, they're able to reflect on that and to absorb that. So I feel like every conversation about mental health needs people to take accountability for themselves. Yes, there are external factors, and external factors will always be there. You can't be in a utopia where everything is controlled in a way that you desire it to be. It's not possible. And so we can't always shift the blame to external factors, because like I'm saying, they'll always be there. They won't disappear. So we can't continue using it as a scapegoat.
Okay, you have said it mouthful. So we're experiencing such thing where people get to open about what's inside them, and then we end up what can I put it? How can I put it? End up saying things that are not right towards them. At the end of the day, when let's say we are having an argument in a relationship, how can we help people to open up with confidence in order to not think if ever I talk about this person will end up squashing things back to me. How can we help them open up confidently?
Okay. We had an episode where we were dealing with the red flags and the green flags, and I think we spoke about how you should be. You should feel safe enough in a relationship. Like if you're in a relationship where you do not feel safe, then it's a red flag. You have to get out. And we also spoke about the importance of self-awareness. Like if you are self-aware, you will know when you're being given something that you do not want. So me being unable to open up to my partner, it says something about the relationship that we have. Because if you were my partner, like my partner, I would be able to open up confidently without feeling like I'm gonna be judged. So before we can get into opening up confidence, we need to build safe spaces with our partners, safe spaces with our friends, safe spaces with our colleagues. And look, it doesn't matter how open you are. If the next person is not aware of the feelings that they are feeling when you're telling them, and if the next person is not aware of how one themselves they feel, you're not going to go anywhere with the conversation. You can talk, you can be confident, you can, but as long as the next person you're talking to, it's like you'll be talking to a wall. So we need, in order to be able to deal with our mentals, so that our mentals do not deal with us, we must be self-aware. We must know ourselves. We must really spend time with ourselves. If anything, we do not spend time with ourselves. We always spend time with other people. So we rarely be within us and feel, oh, okay, now this is not what I want, and this emotion is treating me like this. As Letty has said, like you have to deal with it now. It's not a thing of next time. You have to deal with it now. Like now I'm feeling like this, and then communicate it. The best way to deal with mentals is to just communicate it, and then you'll go somewhere. But firstly, you need to be in relationship so you feel safe. If you do not feel safe, you've compromised a lot of things more than even your mentals. You've compromised your whole self. Like everything you've worked for until that point is compromised. So be in safe relationships where you feel confident enough to open up about stuff.
I think you raise very valid points pertaining to relationships being a safe space. I think in any relationship, like I said, romantic, platonic friendships, people should be able to speak to each other. you shouldn't feel like people are going to, you shouldn't feel like if you disclose this on another day when you're having an argument, they're going to raise it as a sign of weakness, speak about it as you have this problem and this is a sign of weakness. But I think this is often what happens in a lot of relationships. People don't feel safe to disclose things about themselves. They feel like people will always bring it back. And I think it's something that we also need to address, generally across the board, both female and male, in understanding that things that people disclose to you in confidence should really remain in such a way. We shouldn't turn things to be now a knife that you use to stab people in the back when they have disclosed things. But I think you said something about communication, and I just want to ask you, how do you build effective communication? I think communication requires a lot of emotional intelligence, and I think that's an area of intelligence that we as people have really overlooked over time. We've focused on IQ, how smart you are at school, and emotional intelligence hasn't been very developed over time. So how do we even begin, in a society as fragmented as ours, and as broken down as our society is currently? How do we begin to foster good emotional intelligence conversations where people are able to understand how to effectively communicate?
Do you want to answer that, Bui, or should I take it?
No, take it.
Therapy. Guys, we really need to go to therapy. Okay, guys, it's very, how I dealt with my own mental health was I would read, but again, those self-help books, those breathe in, breathe out, they really go a long way if you really read them in a space of reading. But I think building a good communication will start within you. Like you have, guys, self-discovery journey is very important. Once you start going deeper within you, you'll start understanding what makes you angry. You'll start understanding what makes you feel what. And when you understand what you're feeling, it's like an LLB. When your LLB, they put you on stage and say go off LLB, you go off without even thinking about it because you understand it. So you have to understand your emotions enough to communicate them. Communicating is literally just talking, or no, I feel angry. Even when you're not showing who you are angry. Because you've learned to, okay, this thing makes me angry, and then you've learned to deal with it in a calmer way. But if you do not like the thing, just go to therapy, go to a psychologist, go to someone who is qualified enough to break down emotions, and then you'll be able, I promise you, once you get into that space of being able to communicate, it's gonna be easier every day. Even things that are deemed to be getting rude, because these days you can't even tell someone, sorry, I don't like this, because it's gonna be rude. Even things that are deemed to be rude, you'll be able to talk about them. As much as you need to instill the confidence in you first, you need to work on you. Once you start working on you, you're gonna project over to the next person. It's gonna be easier for them to understand you as well.
Okay, ladies. You've mentioned something about safety when it comes to mental health. So, and when it comes to communication, you have said mouthful, ladies. So let's talk about safety. How do we get to safety in a relationship between two people? Because now we are living in a world whereby violence is the source, is the key. Let's talk about safety. What is it behind safety? When I'm talking about safety, do I mean that I have to lock myself inside, that somebody cannot violate me or something like that? Let's talk about safety there.
Okay. So I think this is a very complex phrase. Safety. I think safety means a lot of different things to different people. Some people, and I think it should be reconciled. All those definitions of safety should sort of be reconciled. So there's like a physical safety from bodily harm. I think there's also, you should feel safe mentally, you should feel emotionally safe. And I think in a lot of relationships that are manifesting in our current society, people feel that by reason of them not inflicting physical harm on another person, they have created a safe space in their relationship. And that isn't necessarily always the case. So the mere fact that you don't hit me doesn't mean I'm safe in our relationship. I should have an emotional safety. And I think that's the part that a lot of people struggle with, because essentially, if I'm not emotionally safe, you will easily now physically violate me. So like, like they always say, everything starts in the mind. So if the way you perceive me or the way you treat me with regards to my emotions, you are so open to being violent towards me, be it through your words, through your actions, it is a lot easier to now reach a stage of physical harm. And I think that's where a lot of violence within relationships starts. I don't think people necessarily start by now hitting you. It starts by a violation of your emotional safety, your mental safety. And once you don't stand up for yourself in that aspect, they now feel safe enough to now continue to manifest their violence on your physical integrity. So I think for me, safety in a relationship isn't just to do with the fact that I don't think you'll hit me. It's also the fact that if, let's say, we are involved in an altercation, we're having an argument, if the words you use are intentionally, like you use the kind of words that would harm me, then I'm not in a safe relationship, because I know you would never hit me, but you feel comfortable in violating my emotional well-being by saying things that are directly hurtful. So I think for me, I've never been, I've never encountered a friendship, a relationship where anyone has physically threatened me with harm. But I think with a lot of friendships, as you go, there are people who make you feel emotionally unsafe, simply because after talking to them, perhaps you feel bad about yourself. For example, if right now after December, now when you go back to university and you see your friends in February and they're all on some, you gained so much weight, you haven't physically harmed me, but for a fact that some of your words could cause me injury. And that is not an emotionally safe, that's not an emotionally safe space. So I think a lot of our conversations, as much as physical violence is definitely a thing, I think a lot of people struggle with realizing that they don't create safe spaces in their relationship because they don't understand that emotional violence is also a violation of safety in a relationship.
Okay. I can hand over to you, Ms. Monagedi. You can say.
Okay, I'm just gonna backtrack a little and go back on communication. Communication is, I think it goes, we spoke about how communication and understanding go hand in hand. Like I have to communicate and you have to understand me. Then that's when we can say, oh, we've reached a communication. Because if you're just gonna talk and talk and talk and talk, then we're not reaching any, we're just talking, there's no communication. So in learning how to communicate your feelings, you and yourself, you must learn on how to receive emotions. I hope I'm making sense. Because I can dish out for as much as I want, but if the person I'm dishing to does not get it, does not understand it, I've done nothing. So then, if I am able to communicate and the person is able to understand, that's when we reach safety in the relationship. That's when we meet the safety that we're talking about. By safety, as Nyelete said, you don't necessarily mean you don't harm me. You can harm me emotionally, you can harm my spirituals, you can harm my mentals, you can harm me literally in any way other than just hating me. So the way the person you're with communicates with you is gonna set the level of the safety in your relationship. If they are just nearly the example Nyelete said, like if Rifita Basitika February, like, yo, when I so why are you so fat? Honestly, that's not a nice thing to say. It's not. So immediately Nyelete is gonna feel like, okay, now I'm under attack. Because that's what I did. I emotionally hurt her. And another example that I can give is when somebody ridicules your spiritual practices, it hurts you spiritually because now you're thinking, well, you're mad, why? Do you understand? So the safety is compromised. This but your energy, your magnetic field is compromised. I have to use that word, because then things that are hurting you are coming in there, and you're just letting them come into your space. So you being able to communicate and the person being able to understand, you're creating safety. Mara, if you go to your best friend and then, oh Majahuri, you've done this and I didn't like it, it hurt me, and then they just dismiss you. There's no safety in that, because how else are you gonna go back? Oh, no, you just this other thing and then it hurt me. Then they still just brush you off. Then you go back. At the end of the day, you're gonna be tired. You learn for actually more. My emotions are not safe. It's in the smallest things actually where you'll see for your emotions are not safe, where your emotions are not properly received, and then if you have gone and if you've went on a self-awareness journey, you will know when to leave. Like nothing saves you from stuff like the way you would save yourself from stuff. Only you know yourself best. So only you can remove yourself from harmful situations, be it at work, be it in friendship, be it in relationships, romantic relationships. If something does not sit well with you, you will feel it. Oh no, this is not sitting well with me, and then remove yourself from there. I think that's how we reach safety.
Okay. I can see Happiness hands is up. So Happiness.
Thank you, Bui. Thank you so much. I just want to remind the audience that they're still listening or watching to Bay Waves. We are currently talking about mental health. So you guys are talking about something that is very interesting, communication. There's a comment from Rulani Baloi that says, so true how we emotionally hurt each other. We tend to think of hurt only as physical hurt, but I realize emotional hurt goes a long way. So I just want to know from you ladies, how do you heal from emotional injuries? It's very easy to treat a physical injury, but how do you, maybe you can even share your personal stories. How do you how do you heal emotional injuries? Thank you.
Okay. I would say healing an emotional injury it's a long process for one to take or embark. They would say when you open up is the more you heal. And it will also depend on the environment that you'll be going to. Let's say you're having somebody trust on your side, a friend or a sister, anybody, and you open up. Immediately when you open up, you talk about whatever that's inside you. That's why the process of healing, okay, let me say, people have different ways of healing their emotions. Some people cry, some people punch bags or do whatever. But the best way for a person to heal emotionally, okay, let me give you an example on my side. Whenever I'm emotionally injured, I cry, I open up to whomever I find. Let's say I find my mom, I'll cry to her, talk to her about anything that's hurting me. I know it might take me some time to heal, but I know talking, coughing out whatever that is inside you helps a lot for a person to heal. Because emotions, we're talking about something that is inside. It's a spiritual case. Let me not talk about spiritual, but let me talk about something that is inside. It's a moving motor. Let me use it in the language of mechanics. When a car is operated without a petrol, we believe that there's no motion in that process. So immediately when a soul is injured, I don't think a person can let me say can be okay or anything with that. So for a person to be emotionally okay, let's open up, let's talk, attend a therapy, somebody that will assist you to talk about whatever that's bothering you. And then, yeah, I think that's how I deal with emotional injury.
Yeah, I think, you mentioned crying, and I remember from listening to the men's conference, they spoke about how they don't cry. I remember someone was very passionate and said, you know what, no matter what, I'm not going to cry. And I think that's really important in understanding what exactly is your healing process. Healing processes aren't the same for everybody. For example, I really love to bake. when I'm upset, right? You know, when you need that dough, no, you're giving it, you know, I feel like it helps me let go of all the anger if I have anger in me. But I think it's also really important in your healing to be able to acknowledge that someone hurting you isn't necessarily a reflection of you. So you should be able to understand, you know, I know a lot of people will say, no, but maybe my friends say this because it's true. You know, maybe I deserve to be hurt like this. And it's really important for a person to be able to understand that someone hurting you doesn't necessarily mean that you are deserving of the hurt. You need to be able to separate the other person from yourself. So you need to know that the fact that someone says this doesn't mean that is who you are. Like Takatso said, it's important to be self-aware. So, you know, there are certain things that someone may say that may hurt you. So for example, if really I go back to uni in February and someone says, oh my gosh, you've gained so much weight, you know, from the face value, like the minute you hear it, it may be hurtful to you, right? But when you're self-aware, if you know yourself that no, they're like, no man, I did gain weight, it's time to go to the gym, you know, it was a true comment as much as someone said it in a hurtful way. So it's important in your healing process to be able to analyze what exactly is the hurting act. You know, was it something that, you know, people may say offensive things, but they are true. So it's important to sometimes also be able to separate the offense from the truth. You know, I know a lot of people who aren't able, like right now we were talking about communication. I know a lot of people who aren't able to communicate. So as much as whatever point you're trying to raise may be valid and may be true, you don't know how to bring it up to me in the right way. So essentially, I'm always going to feel offended when you say something and it may be true. So it's important in going through your hurting process to also be able to analyze, like they say, there's always a lesson in the hurt, you know. You should also be able to see, you know, what is the lesson that you should actually be taking away from this hurt? You know, is this person may have said something in a hurtful way that may be true and you may need to go back and reflect about it. This person may have said something that was totally untrue, that was, you know, totally hurtful. And in such an instance, you need to be able to say, you know what, this person saying this does not mean that it's true. I should be able to separate myself from the hurt. As much as it's hurtful, you should be able to deal with it. So like Bui, I definitely, I cry. I can cry in the middle of a test. I can cry right before a test. You know what, tears are not a scarce thing for me. Like I could cry now if I had to. They're not scarce for me, and it really helps. I remember actually a while back, there was someone who was talking and was comparing a man and a woman and was saying, you know, towards the end of their lives, they collected samples. I don't remember samples of what. And they said a man's body actually had more poisonous toxins in them simply because they didn't cry, because crying actually releases a lot of toxins in you. So personally, my love for crying is based on the fact that I'm trying not to poison myself. Okay, I love myself. I will cry and I'll release the toxins, release the hurt, and then go bake something nice and have comfort food and eat it. And then also, you just, when people hurt you, you need to be able to pick yourself up. You know, it's not helpful to sit and cry for a whole week. You know, when I cry for school, sometimes you have to set a timer. You know, you need to say, I will wallow in my pity until 3 o'clock. And when 3 o'clock strikes, it's time to get back to the books because you don't have time to be crying anymore, you know. So it's important, you know, people hurt you. It's possible for people to hurt you very often. It's possible to go through a very long period in life without someone hurting you. And if you're the type of person who will absorb all that hate, you know, you keep it within yourself and you prevent yourself from moving on with your life, then essentially you're boring yourself. So like I said, being able to separate yourself from the person, you need to understand that wallowing in the hate does nothing but delay you as a person. Because that person said what they said and they're okay with it. They're living their life. Some people may come back to you after a while and say, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I hurt you in this way. But some people never come back. They may be aware, others may definitely not be aware. So it's important not to hold it against the other person, you know, heal. And healing is definitely a process. Sometimes you relapse, sometimes you're doing great, you know, and it's important to acknowledge that.
Nah, guys, see, I have the most toxic coping mechanisms. You had me today, I'll be asleep for the rest of the month because I don't want to remember what you said to me. And every little chance I get, I'm like, cry. I'm going to cry. And I'm gonna talk about it. So I have a lot of ways of dealing with an emotional injury, but one that works best for me is just to sit in silence and analyze but what exactly, why am I this hurt? What hurts me exactly? Is it the person, or is it the words, or is it the truth in the words that they said? So just sitting in silence and feeling my feelings, it's healing. By starting with addressing the issue is healing. And you have to be very gentle with your healing process, because one day you're sitting, you find you're laughing, the next thing you remember what, then it all comes back. If you have to cry, go cry. If crying doesn't work for you, the next person you find there, vent to them. Now you guys, I vent to anyone. If you ask me how are you, I'm gonna tell you all my problems. But when I do that's none of my business. As long as so yeah, you can meditate. Meditation is torture, but once you get to a level of understanding it, it's more peaceful. Like you'll find more peace in yourself and whatever. Napping, I sleep a lot when I'm hurt. I shut down, so I sleep and I do not talk to anyone. But if Bella, you hurt me, I'm gonna dream about you, then I might have to wake up and vent about it. And then, just blasting music is also therapy. It's also therapy. You can just finding things that make you happy will help you heal your emotional injuries. Let's acknowledge your handyman happiness.
Thank you for that one. So I heard Bui say punching things is another way of healing. So these days we see people punching people. So I want to know, do you guys think GBV was introduced as an emotional injury healing mechanism? Do you think emotional injury could be a factor?
I genuinely believe that. We have this thing as humans where we say, when someone is angry at you, you start saying they're showing their true colors. Mara, that whole 6 months when they were being sweet to you, when they were also their true colors. So I feel like if they're gonna use punching as an outlet, their excuse would be like they've built up their anger within them, and now with just something small is gonna set the bomb off. But it's the most toxic. Like it shouldn't even exist as a coping mechanism. It's criminal. It's illegal. It's whatever the LLD words they're gonna use. You should never ever use someone as your punching bag. Ever you do that in the healing, I hope that Annie is gonna say the seat for you right next to him. Because never, guys, no. So the best, if you have emotional baggage, if you have emotional stress, be mad, be angry, address that anger at that time. Because once you build it up, for something that they're not even responsible for. I think half of the gender-based violence cases we have, they are just casualties to a war they know nothing about. Papa didn't buy him Christmas clothes 15 years ago. Now you bought yourself clothes and then triggering them and then they're angry. Go to therapy, honestly.
Yeah, no, Thabiso, I definitely agree with what you're saying. I think it's also the fact that talk about healthy coping mechanisms isn't something that happens in our homes, in our communities. People think they can deal with their hurt in whatever way. And I think it's really, really, really important for a person to understand that you must deal with your hurt without hurting another person. It's very important that your hurt shouldn't now cause a ripple effect of hurt for other people. So I think the gender-based violence, there are definitely a lot of factors that do contribute to gender-based violence. I think emotional hurt is definitely one of them. Bruised alter egos. There are so many reasons why people do what they do, but I think essentially a lot of it comes back to emotionally, your emotional health and how you've dealt with things. It may not have been a result of someone emotionally hurting you at that present moment. Like she said, it could be something that happened 15 years ago. A lot of people bottle up their anger, and then they do things, and when you ask them, they'd say, I don't know why she made me so angry. I don't remember why she did that made me so angry. It's simply because you aren't aware of what made you so angry. I remember I sat in a mental health talk a couple of weeks ago, and they spoke about how a lot of things that happen to you as a child are hidden deep within your subconscious, and so you react based on those things, but you don't, your mind doesn't know those things. So if anyone were to ask you what caused you to do that, if it's so hidden within your subconscious, you will never know. And the only way to unleash those things and start working on that hurt that you developed as a child, like Takasa said, is to go to therapy, because they're able to help you dig deep into your subconscious and unravel the things that are bothering you so much. So I think a lot of people, if you're listening to this and you feel like you really struggle with a really random outburst, like someone could do something so small, like Taza said, a lot of Christmas time is triggering for a lot of people. Perhaps there are things that happened in their childhood. Perhaps, your families weren't able to provide the typical Christmas you see with Santa Claus and the Christmas tree and the presents, and things like that trigger you, and you find yourself extremely unhappy during certain periods of time. I think it's really important for people to, when you don't know, like if you genuinely don't know what your problem is, you see by your actions that you have a problem, because sometimes you don't realize that you have a problem in your mind, but someone can look at you and say, no, but by the way you're acting, you have some sort of problem. If you're unable to tap into it, if you can't think of what exactly is causing you to react in the ways that you're reacting, it's really important to consider therapy. It helps you, they will help you, and in healthy ways, to dig into your subconscious. Because also the thing with trying to unravel this thing, so for example, someone may say, no, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to go talk to my aunts. I'm going to talk to my neighbors from, back then. Such a thing could be dangerous, because you don't know how to deal with your emotions in an effective way. Sometimes you need a guided process where you're dealing with your emotions. And that's why therapy is not necessarily only for the fact that you don't know what's wrong with you. Sometimes you may know what's wrong with you, but it's important to have someone who's going to guide you through the process, so that you're not unraveling every piece of hurt from the past 20 years in one day. You're going to burst. You won't be able to handle it. It's beyond your mental capacity to handle years of hurt, in a single day. And that's why things like therapy are very important. It's a guided process. They'll help you. Your therapist will sometimes say, that's enough for today. They'll tell you it's enough for today for a reason, because they need you to be able to cope with the emotional baggage that you're unraveling as time goes through therapy. So I think, yeah, definitely gender-based violence, one of the contributing factors is emotional hurt that isn't dealt with in an effective way.
Can I just add one last thing? For guys, it's okay to experience anger. You're not a bad person for being angry. You're not a bad person for feeling sad. You're not a bad person for feeling tired. You're not a bad person for feeling emotions. So whatever emotion you feel it. It's the way that you react that's going to cause a problem. But once you feel and understand your feelings, the way you react is actually going to be better. It's going to help you solve the problem itself. So when you feel angry, if that's your true color, pride yourself in your true color of anger. If you feel happy, as much as we feel happy, yeah, I'm happy, be angry and let people know who you're angry. Someone is going to come up to you and ask for what's wrong, and then you'll start communicating, and then you'll be fine. Do you understand? Like, before you're human, before you are anything else more person, you are human, and as human, we have emotions. So let's every emotion that comes, feel it, deal with it, and then let it go.
Okay, ladies, you have said mouthful, and I would advise everyone who's watching us today, guys, I hope you are learning a lot from these beautiful ladies, that communication, safety, they've mentioned so many things, guys. Let's open up, let's visit therapies, let's make sure that we are safe, and then we open up, and then I really grudge, anger issues, and so forth. Guys, these things are very toxic to ourselves, whereby they're even destroying the inner us. So let's open us. So ladies, it was quite interesting because Nelly mentioned something like violence, like being abused, and then like, okay, how can I put it? Okay, let me say this. People are being violated, right? And then some people say they express their anger through violation, through hitting people up. And then last week, through the reflection of guys, they said people who are most abusive, they come from abusive families. They adapted that from their background. How can you say how true is that?
I think, for some people it's very true. Children, as a child, you do absorb a lot of what you see. For example, I have a sister, she's 5 years old. Um, I constantly see things my sister does that are very much like my brother. Like even the words that she'll say. My sister actually now sits at a specific spot in the house, a very odd spot in the house. A normal person generally wouldn't go and sit there, but she sits there because my brother often sits there. So you see children absorb a lot of things that they see in the environment surrounding them, and I think it may be true. I also know of a certain child who was at a school who was now violent towards other children, and that was simply because of what was happening in their home. So it's really important that as a community, we should be able to pick up things like this. They always say, you are your sister's keeper, you are your brother's keeper. They'll always say, as a community, you're one big family. It's really important for people also to play a role in things like that. So when you will know in some places, that the people in that house or the man in that house, he treats his wife in a bad way. Maybe you've heard things, or you've heard through the grapevine, whatever way you found out, and there are children in there. I think it's also very important for teachers, in schools, to be actively involved in children's lives. This one child in the school, they were able to help the child and tell the parents, that this is how your child is acting, simply because they were observing. They could see this child is acting in a certain way, and they then probed the parents to talk about what exactly is causing the child to act in this way. So it's very important for people in the community to also just take accountability for the fact that, some families aren't great. Some things aren't going to go the way we intend for them to go. And it's important for us to be able to provide emotional support for these children. So I think a lot of children who've turned out to now project violence on other people because of how things were in their home is because there was no one who was able to mitigate what's happening in their houses. There was no one who was there to provide support for them. So it's important that we be watchful as a community and we're able to support children who we feel may be going through such a situation, and in a safe way. Obviously you can't go to a person's child and say, hey, tell me what's happening in your home. Yeah, you'll be arrested. So you need to do things in a wise way. So yeah, I think it's definitely a factor, and the only way to work through things is to acknowledge that you have a problem and to work through it. But I think the community definitely has to start taking active accountability of the people in their societies and trying to help those children to the best of their abilities.
I think childhood traumas are what contribute the most to this violences, because Melody mentioned that half of the things that happen when we are kids, they're stored in our subconscious. So it's stuff like seeing your parents shout at each other when they encounter a problem. Obviously, you're gonna think, oh, that's the correct way of doing things, and then you get a partner only 30 years, and the first thing you do when you find their socks at the door, you're not gonna ask, why are your socks there? You just start by shouting, your socks are there, blah blah blah. So it goes back to childhood traumas. It goes back to, it's not an excuse though that you're an abuser. No, it's not an excuse. We're not making excuses for you why you beat up women, why you beat up men. And it also links to toxic masculinity and misogyny. Because this thing there are a lot of occurrences. It's not a rare case, like it's something that we're even used to. So it shows so we have men with fragile egos, we have men who hate women, we have women who hate women, because we hardly ever talk about the violence of women on women, but there's also that. So maybe because they grew up in abusive households, then they tend to be abusive. Mara, still that does not justify their actions. You guys need to sort out your emotions. You guys need to work on your emotions, and you need to go to therapy and heal and forgive your parents. We are not the ones who are responsible for making you to forgive everything that happens to you.
Yeah, Takatsu, I think you raised a very important point about also taking accountability for the things that happen to you. But now I wanna ask you a question. You know, as a woman, right? I think the feminist movement did definitely arise because of things affecting women such as this, you know, as being abused in a house, and you need a way to outcry. You know, I think that's how the feminist movement, you know, arose. What is your idea of feminism? You know, what do you believe feminism is? Because, you know, you go through Twitter and you see a lot of things about feminism. You know, there are people who understand it, who talk, you know, they say brilliant things, and there are people who misconstrue the idea of feminism and have the certain ideal that feminism feminism exists to push certain narratives that aren't exactly for the common good. So what is your idea of feminism?
Okay. So I've come to realize that feminism is now divided. There's feminism, then there's the modern feminism. The modern feminism is where they think we're only advocating for women, but feminism is basically advocating for everyone. We are advocating for equal rights, equal treatment, equal pay, equal everything, you know, equal opportunities, equal treatment, we are advocating for equality. But the modern feminism now has shifted to just focusing on women because there's a crisis on women. There are more attacks on women, so we are forced to advocate for women than we advocate for men. But actually, what feminism is about is also advocating for men. It's also saying, Takatsu lost her virginity at 21, and that's fine. And also, the boy lost his virginity at 21, and that's okay. That's feminism. But the modern day feminism is, why did Takatsu lose her virginity at 21? She's still young. And then a boy losing his virginity at 16 is okay. That's the modern day feminism that you're dealing with now. But what feminism is in its whole form is basically equal rights, equal opportunities, equal treatment, equal pay, equal everything.
I think you mentioned how there is two forms of feminism. Okay, but before I get there, let me hear Bui give me her definition or her view of feminism.
Okay, perspective on about knowing your qualities as a female, according to my understanding, knowing what you need to do and not to be done as a female. That's how I understand it. I've never had a time or an open-minded information about feminism. The only thing that I had and that I knew was that a female must be independent. A female must do this and that for themselves. That's when I had about feminism, and then okay, I never had a clear content about feminism.
Okay, I definitely understand what you're saying. I think feminism is one of those topics that have been brushed through, right? Like, a person knows the word feminism, but a lot of people don't necessarily understand what are feminist ideals. You know, what do feminists actually stand for? You know, a lot of people misconstrue it to mean a certain group of people who you know, certain things you won't say, but they don't advocate for the common good. You know, they'll say that there are certain people who believe, you know, like there's just a lot of misunderstandings about what feminism is. And, you know, so like I said, I'm a law student. I studied legal philosophy. So a lot of what I'm going to say should be attributed to my lecturer, Mr. Joel Madiri. I should give credit where it's due. He's definitely an amazing lecturer, definitely the best. I probably, you know, worldwide to deal with legal philosophy and feminism and ideals such as that. And I think there were three waves of feminism that have actually emerged over time, right? So from the very beginning, I think feminism definitely, it arose as a way for women to voice their concerns. I think in the second episode of the men's conference, they spoke about how a lot of patriarchy and mistreatment of women began with a lot of commercialization and the move to trade, right? So before, when everyone was still farming in their own homes, the roles were balanced. Everyone knew what they were doing. No one was stamping over another person. But as soon as the world moved to a more commercial trade kind of society, I think a lot of people started looking out for themselves. It wasn't as much for, back then, the principles and the ideals of Ubuntu, where you valued, the community above yourself. I think with commercialization and trade, a lot of people started to look forward to themselves. A lot of greed actually began at the beginning of commercialization and trade. And because of things like that, like we know, women didn't set laws in the time where commercialization was starting. A woman couldn't even own land. In some places in the world, a woman can't even go outside alone without a man accompanying her. And it's crazy to think about the fact that these things still exist in 2021, that I cannot walk out of the house without my brother or my father walking with me. I cannot speak in certain spaces. And I think it's things like that that really bring out, the movement of feminism and just women trying to advocate for themselves. And it's often misconstrued. And, anyone who doesn't understand feminism should really understand how women didn't have voices at the time when the feminist movement began. You couldn't go out, you couldn't buy anything on yourself. In South Africa, you were regarded as a perpetual minor. So essentially, a child under 18 can't sign certain contracts. You can't do things on your own. That was a woman. You move from your parents' house, and then when you are married, you now go to your father's house and to your husband's house, and then you are a child in your husband's house. And understanding that women didn't have voices like that, a person really understands why the feminist movement, people feel so strongly about it, because it's essentially about women bringing back their voices and taking up space. The famous line by Zozi Bini, take up space. And that's really what I believe feminism is about. It's about taking up space. But like I said, there were 3 waves of feminism, and I just want to ask you guys, just based on your personal opinion, which ideal of feminism you think you identify more with. And for the ladies that are listening, please drop it in the comments. Please tell me, what ideal of feminism do you think you identify more with? Because as much as these movements emerged, the first wave, the second wave, and the third wave, they emerged at different times. So moving with the times, I think we can still see a bit of the different types of feminism in modern times. It's not that the first wave isn't relevant at all. So in the first wave, women were striving for a neutrality, right? To be treated equal as men, to be the same. So things like, no, but if he can work in a factory, I can work in a factory. That's what emerged in the first wave of feminism. And then in the second wave of feminism, then they confronted more practical things. So, you can say, okay, now we both work in a factory, but a woman is built in a certain way and a man is built in a certain way. Science will tell you men have more physical strength than a woman. And that is science. There are definitely women with more physical strength than men. And there are men, it's possible to have the reverse. But in general, men have greater physical strength than women. And so the second wave of feminism, we're looking at practical things like that. Like, yeah, no, sure, I said I can work in a factory like him, but the work needs to be something that I can do. Something like, yeah, sure, I said I could work in a factory like him, but I need maternity leave and he doesn't get maternity leave, right? So it's things like that that first wave feminists didn't think about. And then in the final wave of feminism is when the focus wasn't necessarily about men and women, but in the third wave of feminism, actually women focus on themselves. So it's a focus on women specifically. So women saying, no, you're sure, we get you. You're saying the difference between a man and a woman is this. but third wave feminists say, but there are differences within women themselves. And I'm sure we can all attest to that. I'm pretty sure I'm definitely not the same person as Bui. Bui and I have our differences. We're not the same in every way. And third wave feminists try to see things like that. They try to acknowledge that you can't paint us all in the same brush. We're not all the same. So things like we are bay waves, we're both African youth. So things like Africanacity, the fact that I'm not the same as a European woman. What I deem as important isn't the same as what they deem as important. We are set in different places, besides the fact that we're a developing country or they're a developed country. Our ideals aren't the same simply because we also don't embody the same principles and beliefs. So I want to ask you guys, based on what I just said, what wave of feminism do you think you identify with?
Bui, you can go first.
I would say I will focus on the physical strength for females. Okay, because we are living in a revolutionary world. Sorry for it's a slip of a tongue. Okay, we are living in a world whereby things doesn't even require any strength. For instance, I'm doing mechanical engineering. People used to believe that career is meant for men only. Okay, so now as a female, I'm doing mechanical engineering. It requires a physical strength. You understand? So to me, like I would go with physical strength, since we need to let me use this way. We need to engage in so many different activities. I'm not sure if I'm answering you here, man. Okay. So I would go with physical strength. I guess we need to be to be fair enough to ourselves in order to do what we are good at, despite the physical strength that a person has. So yeah.
Okay, so you identify with the second wave. You think it's important that people should be afforded equal opportunities, but we should also be able to take into consideration that men and women aren't exactly the same. There are differences that exist, and they need to be taken into consideration. All right, it's interesting to hear. And Takatso?
I'm also the second wave. I'm with the second wave. The things that they bring forward, like your physical strength, I think that can be worked around. I can go to the gym and build up mass and be able to move the skills and whatnot. Like, they're just things that can be modified. It's not something that's solid. And if we're gonna be talking about maternity leave and whatnot, why don't we come up with a paternity leave so that the father can also go home and help with the mother with the new child? Like, the second wave makes more sense for me than any of the waves. I feel like with the third wave, we are enhancing misogyny within the women community, because now we'll have women who feel like they are more powerful and more advanced than the other women, but we all under the umbrella of uplifting women. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but we have women who have toxic masculinity. Like, you'll find people who will tell you, well, I'd rather deal with the men than the women, because with this thing of just movement of the women only, it has created so much misogyny within the community that it's canceling the feminism out. So I'm definitely for the second wave.
I think you raise a lot of points. But before I tell you about the next point, I'd just like to remind you guys that you're listening to Bay Waves on World Move Radio. We're having a girl conversation. We're talking about feminism currently. We've just dealt with gender-based violence and been dealing with mental health. So if you missed anything, you are more than welcome at the end of our session to rewind, catch up on what you've missed. But we're currently talking about feminism, and we really hope to hear you guys in the comments. So please let us know, what wave of feminism do you resonate with? What do you understand about feminism? Even the men, let us know, what do you think feminism is? What have you seen about feminists? So yes, we're really looking forward to hearing from you guys. But like I was saying, I think it's very important that women also are able to rise above their own shortfalls. I think you do raise a very good point about the fact that, a lot of women within the community, there's a development of a lot of dislike, hate, for a lack of a better word, amongst women. And it's very important that as women, we should be able to acknowledge that, essentially you are still a woman, you are your sister's keeper. And it's important that we do not feel that by nature of you being of a certain class, of having a lighter or a darker shade of skin, of anything, having straighter teeth, whatever it is that women are able to look at and think makes a person better than the other. It's important to recognize that that is not how it is. It's important to realize that people are different. And as much as we are right now talking about, they identified with the second wave and said that they like the version of feminism that, as much as it advocates for equality between men and women, also acknowledges the differences between men and women, and how we should be able to address those differences in a fair way. Either way, the fact that there are differences shouldn't mean that there's unfairness. Differences can be dealt with in a fair way. So as women, I'm going to ask you guys on a more personal experience kind of thing. What are these type of things that you've seen within the women community that negates our movement of feminism, that really just bring our name down as women?
Superiority complexes, superiority, guys, I have this problem. I have a huge problem with women. I might be a misogynist, but I have a huge problem with women. There are certain groups of women that deem themselves more important than the other women. If you go onto confession pages like on your Instagram, like your Hot Accept, your Popcorn Room, you'll see that there are women who have placed them at the top of their hierarchy, and then there are those who are down there. And then there's also the issue of texturism. Yellow bones feel superior to dark-skinned girls. I guess it was their problem. There's also the structure thingy. A woman with nice boobies and nice bums, they are placed at the at the top of the food chain of some sort. Like, there's just a lot of and categories that were never even supposed to be there. You'll find a woman who is a CEO looking down at a woman with 5 kids. That woman wanted 5 kids. You wanted to be a CEO. Both of you are right. You are right. You're at the same level. She went for what she wanted. You went for what you wanted. At the end of the day, you both got what you wanted. So there's just some of those divisions and comparisons that break the whole community apart. And honestly, I hate that for us, Shem. I hate that for us.
Brie, what do you think? What are your experiences with what we're talking about?
Okay, I again second what Takato said. Most females feel superior over other females, okay? And again, it leads to jealousy. There are some females who think they're better than other females, and again, it creates a huge hatred between two females. For instance, somebody looks prettier than the other, you understand? The one who's prettier thinks that she better than the other one. So this is the other thing that's also having a great impact in our society. And it again leads to another factor, it's jealousy. Being superior goes hand in hand with jealousy and lack of compliments as females. Like somebody who thinks prettier than the other feels like, okay, fine, now I cannot compliment the other person. Again, that thing creates a great division between the two people. It creates hatred. If somebody says, you don't have a beautiful body, again, that person, the same person who says that, feels superior to over the other. And that thing, that's things that create a big hatred. And jealousy is one other thing that creates a big division in two females, and if ever I'm not able to tell you good as a female, again, it shows that I am full of jealousy. I cannot say good about another female. I don't portray a good picture of being a female. So being superior over others, being jealousy, hatred, more likely the same thing.
I hear what you're saying, but now we've spoken about the problems. What ways can we address it? What is our solution? Because like in every conversation, if we're just going to point out problems, there isn't going to be any improvement. We need to be able to look at it and think, okay, what is it that we can do, to make this a better movement, without these divides within the women themselves, because essentially a divided movement cannot succeed in their outcomes, in their goals. So what is it that we can do as women to stop this fragmented kind of socialist, classist community that we live in, and to one where we are able to identify our common ideals, our common struggles, and actually use our voices, and now as a joint and a united movement be able to pursue our common goals for feminism.
I used to be this girl who always thought the next person is miserable. So now I do this thing, if a person is content with where they are, I should let them be. Do you understand? Like, if a 21-year-old wants to go get married, it's fine, go get married. If they want to ditch school and not be a boss babe, it's fine, go do that, as long as you're content. If a girl want to be a slave queen and go out every night and spend money and do this and do the jollof things, if they are content, then it's fine. I feel like we need to just allow people to be content without wanting to alter their reality. If someone is content with not going to school, why make it your business to force that person to go into school? Even if you know that going to school is going to work out better for them than just being at home. But if they are content, we must respect people enough to know, to not try and pursue them into the realities that we want for them. Like if that person doesn't want to be who I want them to be, and they're okay with who they are, then you should let them be. Like, it's okay, my baby. You do not want to run a business. It's fine. Do you want to work for me? Yes, I want to work for someone. It's fine. Do you want to go onto contraceptives, or do you want to fall pregnant? No, I want to have 15 babies. It's fine, as long as they are content. I've come to accept people with the realities that they have without wanting to alter them to benefit. Because in my head, what benefits them does not benefit them in real life. I hope I'm making sense.
Yes, I totally understand you. So you mean within our community of women, we should be able to accept that people make their choices, and the fact that someone else's choice is different from yours shouldn't mean that you are better off than them, because essentially everyone feels content in their choice. I feel content with what I've studied, and it makes no sense for me to now look at B and be like, girl, why did you go study mechanical engineering? You should have done law. No, essentially everyone needs to be different, and it's only in a society where we embrace our differences that there's going to be any movement. I mean, imagine if we were all doctors, or imagine if we were all engineers. There needs to be, there needs to be differences. Essentially, every community will have some sort of differences within them. I'm going to give Bui a chance to respond to my question. Thereafter, we'll acknowledge Happiness. She has a few questions from us from the floor.
Okay, for us to avoid that, guys, being judgmental is one other thing that it destroys us as people, as females. Like feeling that, okay, when somebody's doing that, that's something that's wrong, because now I don't prefer it. You understand? Let's avoid being judgmental. Let's leave people to make their own choices. Let's leave people live their best lives, and let's become sisters. Let's love each other. If I see that you made a mistake, let me not let you live like that. Let me try to protect you, and not in a rude manner, but in a polite manner. Understand? For instance, Chakatsu mentioned something about somebody being 21 years old, being married, the other one not married. Like being trying to make other people's choices bad because we chose our different paths. Let's be fair enough as females to accommodate everyone else for what they want.
Definitely agree with you, Bui. Happiness, I see you have some questions from us from the floor. may we please hear what our lovely viewers have to say to us this evening?
All right, thank you, Bui. Yeleti, you're leading the conversation so well. I just want to remind our audience, or I'm there in the comment section, #Tumamina. Well, I have 2 comments. There's one comment that was posted earlier, but it is still relevant for this conversation that you're having right now. It is from Rulani Baloi. She is saying, one psychiatrist once said most people will talk about things that are a problem to them, e.g., a person may say you have gained weight because they themselves have a problem with their weight. And there's also Mashodi Olivia Mampani, who is saying, I think women need to first understand what feminism stands for and get rid and rid themselves of thinking they're superior to men. Women also need to stop being judgmental. At Tahazo, I agree with you. And that's all the comments from the comment section. Thank you.
Thank you so much, viewers, for engaging with us. We definitely love hearing from you from wherever you are. So please do continue to engage with us. We love hearing from you. And we definitely love this conversation to be a two-way street. We'd love to hear from you. We hope that you are gaining some insights from us as we speak about feminism this evening. And I totally agree with what she said. We need to understand what feminism is. I think, honestly, our many problems arise from a misunderstanding of what things are. I feel like if people truly understood everything around them, things would move a lot smoother. So women who don't understand feminism are very quick to use it in a way that disempowers other women. They believe, for example, I have my nails done right now. This is it's not an everyday occasion, but I know a lot of people will look at you with your natural nails and be like, they feel you're not feminine enough. They'll feel like if you don't have your braids done, you're not feminine enough. I, for one, have an afro. I keep my hair very natural. And an experience that I've had, I went somewhere commercial, to a company, and someone said to me, wow, it's very bold of you to wear your natural hair to a place like this. And I'm here thinking, girl, what did you expect of me? This is me. Did you want me in something else? So I think it's very important for women to understand, you must understand yourself. I think also a mistreatment of other women is simply because you don't understand yourself. If you understand yourself as a woman, you'll know that you can never mistreat another woman. You'll know that you should never speak or ill-treat another woman. That is because you don't understand yourself, you don't understand your purpose. So I think it's important for women to understand. First of all, you must understand yourself. You must understand why you're here. Once you understand why you're here, you won't be bothered by why another person is on this earth. They are doing what they're here for.
Yep.
When not be bothered about yourself and be bothered about being your sister's keeper in ways that are of a positive nature, not infringing on their ability to choose what they want. So I've seen, I want to bring in a little bit of the problems a lot of feminists try to deal with. One of the most common issues faced by feminists is the way they are treated by men or ill-treated by men. Simple things. For example, I haven't been to town, I think, in like 2 years by myself, because I walked in town some other day and some man tried to grab me. Right? So I felt, no, this is not a safe space for me. This is not somewhere where I'm going to go anymore. And I haven't been there, my parents are always saying, go, you're always shopping online. Me personally, I prefer to be in the comfort of my home, on my couch, and not feel, violated by other men in my presence when I am shopping or going about normal daily things in my life. So, things like that are definitely things that appeal to feminists. What could you guys say about that? Now also reflecting on what was discussed in the men's conference, just trying to intertwine our discussion about feminism and, the issues that they have addressed in their conference.
Men have this thing of thinking when they call you a feminist, they're insulting you. Guys, it's not an insult. It's not the insult that you think it is, right? It's not cool. It's not cute. I feel like gender-based violence has has clouded the feminism movement, because now all we can talk about is just protect women, protect women, protect women. And then we end up leaving the abused men who come around, we end up leaving the boy child behind. And that just on its own, if it cancel the whole feminism thing, equality and whatnot. So I don't know, man, like, we.
Hello.
You can come in.
I have a network problem here. My network is breaking.
All right, let's give Bui an opportunity to deal with the technical issues. She will be joining us as soon as she can. We truly apologize. I know she's definitely going to be missed. She'll be back very soon. I want to ask you, Takato, and you, Bui, if by any chance you are managing to sort your technical issues in the meantime. But I want to ask you, what would a society that is based on equality look like to you?
Oh my gosh. I have mixed feelings about this, because as much as I want a world where it's equal, it's also scary. It's also scary because imagine men have zero respect for women in power. So now imagine having a female president, having a woman in power. It would be nice, but I definitely don't think there's a woman who'd want to place themselves there, because men are just rude. Men are terrible. Guys, I'm gonna say this: men are terrible people. Men are not nice people. Men are vampires, vultures, like Masatanism. So I don't think they'll want to give women the chance. I work in a very male-dominated industry. You grab a hammer already, they're talking over you. You're gonna fail at this. You're gonna do this. So I don't think there's anyone who wants to subject themselves to that. As much as we want a world that's equal, that gives women the same respect as men, that gives women the same opportunities as men, it's gonna be hard for those women in those positions. And honestly, I just want women to live a luxurious life. I want women to just be happy, especially Black women. I just want Black women to be happy, to just be stress-free, to just enjoy life. But a fair world would be so nice. Personally, I would like to be led by a woman. I would like to be respected as a woman, because men have given themselves us without talking to us. So it would definitely be nice. Imagine going outside right now for a walk and a man is going to just respect you for being on the street. It's a dream. It's a dream, honestly.
I definitely understand what you're saying. So you mean there's still a lot of room for improvement and redress within our society. So if ever a magic thing was going to happen and there's now true equality, for all people, which does also, like we've been saying, needs to address the and recognize the differences between the two genders, male and female. What kind of progress do you think would be needed in our society? What kind of things do you think we still definitely need to work on to get to a point where men are able to respect women for who and what they are, right? So I think also just understanding men need to be comfortable. They spoke about, in the men's conference, they spoke about how masculinity in itself is not toxic. It's only when people start, showing certain characteristics that now they try to belittle or oppress others and oppress women or even their fellow men, where it now becomes toxic. So what kind of things do you think would be needed, for men to feel in a way where they'd be able to respect women and also be secure with their masculinity? Because I think a man who belittles another woman or oppresses another woman is not comfortable in his masculinity. He feels that he needs to do something extra to feel superior. And in the ideal world, in the perfect world, it requires people to be content with themselves. People need to be aware of who they are and their purposes. So like we said, we spoke about how both men and women do have differences. And a man who is content in the fact that they have differences and they have similarities will not be toxic, because he will be content with who he is, both with his similarities and his differences with a woman. So what kind of remedies do you think still need to be worked on?
We need to abolish this hierarchy we've given men. You know, we've placed men at the top of the top of the pyramid. Like a man walks in and he wants everything to be in order. Men need to remember, you know, when a child is born, they're like, oh, a child is here. And then they're like, what is it? Is it a boy or is it a girl? Before you were going to be a boy and a girl, you were just a child. So men need to understand, for they're just a human. They're just human. You're not a boss of anyone. You're not a provider of anyone. You have to provide yourself. It's I think the thing of making men providers, making men the head, it's what encourages their toxicity in their masculinity. Because there are men who feel, there was a chat about going to the mountain on Twitter and whatnot, and men were really triggered by that. Men were really triggered. I hope you guys heal, by the way. Men feel like if they get into the kitchen, they are less of a man than the man who's just chilling outside waiting for a plate. No, honey. You need to get into the kitchen and make food for yourself. Men feel like if they wash their clothes, then they are now less of a man than people who's a groove. No, my baby. You still need to do all of that. So men need to understand themselves as human before they come and understand themselves as men. Because sure, you have the masculine. We all have the masculine side to all of us. We all have the feminine side to all of us. It's what you choose to water that shows itself more. So if you choose to water your ego, you're gonna be toxic to everyone. It is where the hoodmans and the ice boys comes in. It's where your homophobic behaviors come in, because you now suddenly threaten to follow the other person is able to do what you're not able to do. Men just need to get out of their shell that they put themselves in. You're not as important, my darling. Oh my gosh, I hate men. But then, honey, you're not as important as you think you are. You're just a man with masculinity. So get out of that and be human for once. Like, just be human. That will create a far better environment, because they will understand why things are done the way they should be done. Like, it's not a taboo for a man to take a paternity leave, because I, as a new mother, need your help at home. It's not a taboo for a man to be a rich ministry. It's not. So, like, men just need to get out of that shell that they put themselves in.
You mentioned something about that Twitter thread that was going on. I did see that, and something that I did see on the Twitter thread. So the quoted replies now on that initial tweet were a lot of women complaining about. This is not in any way to speak against people's cultures. I think it's very important for us to acknowledge that we definitely do respect people's cultures and the fact that everything is different. But we should also be able to see the parts of our cultures that are fostering unhealthy relations between both men and women and between men themselves. I think on that Twitter thread, we saw how culture could have been, culture was actually being used, not that it could have been used. It was being used by certain men to now belittle other men, and also by certain men to now belittle women. And I think, it's important that we do see that, things like that, our culture shouldn't be something that oppresses. It's very important to understand, things like that. And culture, I was actually speaking to my mom yesterday, and we were actually just talking about how culture isn't what people were doing in 1850. That's not your culture. Culture or custom, as it's defined, or rather defined as the courts, they would interpret it, is that culture is actually living. It's the things you practice. So if something was happening in 1850 that you don't do now, you don't practice it, then that's not necessarily your culture, because you don't do it. Culture should be something that you're able to see the practicality of it in your everyday life. It should evolve. So, for example, back then, they spoke about it actually in the men's conference, that back then people wouldn't, a man and a woman wouldn't go to work, both of them. Perhaps the man would go and do something specific and the woman would go do something specific. For example, maybe the man went to hunt and the woman was tending to the fields. Or, as commercialization and trade started, perhaps the men went to work and the woman stayed and looked after the kids. But that's not what's happening in our modern world, right? Right now, probably in all houses, both the man and the woman wake up together and they go to work. Both the man and the woman come back at the same time from work. Sometimes the man comes back later, sometimes the woman comes back later. So we can't continue with a culture that requires a woman to still be doing what she was doing in 1850, because essentially 24 hours has not changed. It has remained 24 hours. The woman does not have 36 hours where you can say she goes to work for 12 hours and then for the other 12 hours she's cooking and she's cleaning, and then for the other 12 hours she's resting the way you would rest. We should be able to apply our culture in our living everyday lives, and we should be able to see how it's applicable. And also, culture isn't just take and drop into your family household. You should also be able to adapt it to your house, right? So if, for example, in your house, you only have boy children, and then you have your wife who goes to work with you, how is it of any benefit to now say, no, those boys can't wash the dishes, no, those boys can't touch a mop? No, you've got boy children. Are you expecting your wife to carry all the household chores on her own? No, things should be able to adapt with how things are going in the modern world, while still retaining our cultural values. There are things, there are cultural values, things embedded. Some things aren't values per se, they are practices. And it's very important for people to acknowledge that your cultural values may remain the same, but your practices may change while still retaining the same values. For example, Ubuntu, the way it's practiced now is very different from the way it was practiced back then. For example, in 1850, perhaps it was safe enough to take some child you found in the street and bring him into your house and give him food, or, whatever it is that you were going to do, give him a place to sleep. But are you telling me now in 2021, if you find a child on the street, you will take them into your house and allow them to stay there? No, you will practice your Ubuntu in other ways. Perhaps you will provide them with food. Perhaps you will speak to them. If it's a child, from somewhere, maybe you'll help them with applications for university or NSFAS, but you wouldn't necessarily be taking them into your house. So we should be able to see with things like that, if Ubuntu can be adapted to move with the times, why can gender roles and what we were traditionally accustomed to for a man and a woman to do not also change? It's important that we also be able to understand that culture shouldn't change to fit just one gender. So if you are a man and you feel that, no, the woman should still be cooking and cleaning and looking after the kids and everything, is your income sufficient enough? Remember back then, they would say the man provides, the food for the house. Is your income sufficient enough to say that if that is your ideals, that women shouldn't go to work? Will you be able to feed your family? If not, why are you saying that things should change and that women must go to work the same way as you do, but you don't want the things that don't benefit you to change? We should be able to be realistic and honest. Culture shouldn't be adapted to suit men only. We shouldn't pick and change what we agree can be changed and what can't. So, yeah. What do you think about that?
I agree with you when you say culture must adapt. Like, I feel like culture has provided men with a safety net to fall onto when things do not work out for them. Like, it has given them a bullet. Like, no, culture, you understand? Like, we both come from work, we are tired, and somebody has to cook. And if the men came early, trust me, you'll find a man who's watching their soccer, waiting for Tato to come back and cook. Because when you try to engage him on why he's not cooking, you'll be telling you the kitchen is not a man's place. But they came back early, and you probably, there's this thing, there was another chat that had the men shaking, where they were complaining that a woman an independent woman will just make decisions on her own and whatnot. Culture has forced women to even not earn more than their men, because the man is gonna be hurt, guys. But but it's just the smallest things that take us back. Like, men have to understand the whole, they are human. There's also just humanly things. If you just be kind, be kind. I think men lack the kindness element in them as they continue to push the culture thingy. Like, be kind in your cultural things. If you come back from work before your wife, at least cook, do something, clean, wash the shop, wash the windows, the curtains and whatnot. Like, or do all of those, because some of these cultural things lack kindness towards women. It's just straight up torture to women. And we're not going anywhere if we continue with the culture thing. Let's just stick with the values, but change the things that are able to change.
All right, I think the ghost is coming in. Yes, I also have a few things to say about culture, but before I go in with my thoughts, there's Bongani Masuluke who is saying modern day husbands need to hear what you're saying, Nelity. So please, if you're watching this, please call your brother, please call your boyfriend, please call your colleague, whoever. This conversation is very necessary to all people. It's not just a girl chat, but it is necessary, especially for men. There's another comment that is saying, I agree, gender roles should be modified to make life more enjoyable. I did say in the previous episode that one should, or like a couple, since we're talking about gender roles, a couple should define their own gender roles. And it's the same thing with culture. I feel like culture is the origin of culture. I feel like there was a man who came up with rules to manage the household, and then those rules were carried over for many years, and we just took that, and that is what culture means to me. So I think in this modern day we should define our own culture. I'm just gonna share a little story that I had about this family. So once upon a time, there was a woman who was preparing Christmas lunch. She was running late, and then, but yeah, she kept on beating her chicken. So the daughter asked her, how mama, why are you beating the chicken? Because we don't have time. And the mother was like, no, I saw it from my mother. She usually beats the chicken for an hour before she cooks it. She's like, but why? It's like, I don't know. It's just the tradition of the family. Then the daughter went to the grandmother. She's like, grandmother, why do you beat the chicken for an hour before you prepare it? She's like, no, I don't know. I got it from your great grandmother. She went to the great grandmother, and the great grandmother was like, no, that's because I didn't have anything else to do. Before I prepared the chicken. So I think that's the same mentality that we're carrying in this generation, that we are still doing things without understanding why. So if you don't understand something, question it. You don't have to continue doing something because it has always been there. And that's me. Hashtag to Mamina. Please send through the questions, your views about culture. I'm still there in the comment section. Goodbye.
Yes, I definitely agree with you. There are a lot of things that exist, and I'm always asking my parents. Probably they think, this child doesn't know anything about her culture, but I always ask, why do you do it like that? Why must it exactly be like that? My mom was actually talking to me about a certain culture. When the initiates come back from their initiation school, they would stand in a line, right? When they have, I don't know, is it paint, is it sand? Yeah, but yeah, they stand in a line, and then the woman would have to come and identify their child. And then also that child would have to tell them what their new name is that they chose for themselves at the initiation school. But before he could do that, he would hit the woman, right? Like hit her. And some people would hit her a lot. Others, maybe you love your mother so much, you don't want to hurt her, kind of just tap, but we didn't quite understand, why must that happen? Is that not something that would make these men feel like it is okay to hit a woman when they feel it is justified? Because the reason they're doing it is because they certainly feel it was justified. Whether they were actually given a reason or whether it's just because they were told to do so that they did it, but it enhances a feeling that it is justified to hit a woman in certain instances. And this is the very beginning of it, and it's done in an initiation, you know. And I think that Twitter thread you were talking about, Takatso, I saw a lot of women, some even men, talking about how these initiates, when they'd come back from initiation school, would be very horrible, you know. There were some who would actually go to school and say, I will not listen to a female teacher give me instructions. And they dropped out of school. Now imagine you take your child to initiation school where you think they will be learning these values that make them a man, and they come back and they drop out of school simply because they will not listen to a woman. You know, it's things like that, you know, that our culture, we should really question, why are certain things done in a certain way? Are certain parts of our culture still integral to our practices in everyday life now? But before I give it to my co-host to give me an opinion on that, I just really like to remind our audience that our comments close at 8:45, which is in 5 minutes from now. So please get all your comments in so that we can hear what you have to say. And we're really looking forward to it. Of course, if by any chance you come across a question or you have a comment at a later stage, we will always be, you know, checking our post so that we're able to reflect and give you an answer in the comments at a later stage. Thank you. My co-host?
Okay. I'm so sorry about my network problem, just a technical error. I might have missed some few things. Can you please take me back on your question so I can go through?
Okay, we were not talking about culture, specifically how
Ms. Baloyi?
Yes, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yes, we are currently talking about culture and how it may possibly lead to a fragmented view of masculinity, possibly even toxic, may contribute to gender-based violence, and just the fact that culture may sometimes be misconstrued and our practices may in effect oppress women in a blind faith of the name of culture.
I'm not sure if I heard you clearly because you've been breaking all along. Okay, when it comes to cultures, there's some strict measures. Okay, let me say, Tarak, can you just please come in? Because I've missed so many things before I can just start lying or being out of topic.
Okay, I just want to touch on toxic femininity. When femininity, or when the thing, yeah, when they come back from the mountain, they now start things like, I'm not going to listen to a woman, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do. It happens with women too. I went to an initiation school for women, and when you are taught to be a woman. Imagine we go there when we're like 10, 11, 12, and then when we come back, we're told that we are women. Now, if you can't, it also counts with you as a person. When you come back, how do you see yourself? How do you see the other person? So, toxic femininity starts when now you come back from the initiation school and now you want to stand on the street with an older woman telling them what they ate for supper. That too is where the culture feels as like, it's fine if we go to the initiation school. I'm not against that. It's fine if we go there, but let's not go there and tell them that they are now men, they are now women. No, just get there, teach them the values, teach them the important stuff, but let them know that they're still kids and they're still human and they still need to continue living as normal people. Do you understand? Because we have a lot of women who are toxic, which is called toxic femininity. And then we do not address it as much as we address the male side of it. And I don't know why we don't do that, actually. I think we need a conversation where we're going to bash women. Honestly, we need that conversation, because we glorify women so much and they have their shortfalls. But culture needs to change. Culture needs to... There are some new values that we need to instill in culture to help solve the problems that we have. Let's start a culture in 2021. And then teach the kids who are going to be born in 2050 something that we came up with. It doesn't necessarily have to be king, the 14th king when they came up with this and this. We can also come with our own culture and just solve the problem as we go. Because I feel like if we're gonna keep saying for the culture is wrong, the culture, until we come up with our own culture, we're not gonna solve anything. So let's start our own culture, and we're gonna start that by tuning to Bay Waves every Tuesday at 7. We're starting small, guys. We're starting small. So let's start with that culture day.
All right, thank you, Tahato. We are definitely running out of time, so I'll give an opportunity to Happiness to give us our questions from the floor, just to make sure we've covered everything from our audience. Happiness?
Thank you, Nyeleti. I just want to remind our audience that we have officially closed the comment section for live responding, live responses. But I'm just gonna read through George's comment. He is saying, isn't it that nowadays men, we are trying to be romantic to break that cultural stigmatization? I mean, I used to cook and clean for my girlfriend, but when it comes to washing clothes for both of us, it felt and still feels weird.
I feel like that's the problem, guys. You're not being romantic. You're being helpful. It's not romantic. You cooking for me is not romantic. You washing our clothes is not romantic. No, it's just you being kind. So stop romanticizing it and just start doing it what you want to do it. Do you understand? And I know a lot of men who do that. Like, oh my gosh, I made Jacob. It's cute because we're not used to it, but we should start normalizing it. It's just cute. It's just. Oh, but honestly, we need the help. We need the help, and we do appreciate the help. But I feel like it's just something that we can't applaud, because you just have to be a nice person, guys. Like, just be a nice person.
I definitely agree with Tahato. And also, just to pose it back to George, if you do this for your girlfriend, will you not help your sister cook because you're not in a romantic relationship with her? So if you only do things like that with the intention of being romantic, do you mean you will not help out your sister, your aunt, your mother, because you are not romantic with them? So it's understanding that, you know, like she says, things like that is not necessarily to be romantic, it's to be helpful. And I think in any relationship, if you love the person, your aim, you should really want to make things simpler for the other person. You know, you should want to make life bearable for the other person. If you can see that, you know, every day I'm super tired, like I'm so tired, I just cook you quick stuff, tin fish, because I just really can't stand on the stove and cook oxtail for you. Why, if really you came home early, are you not willing to cook? You know, it's really not right that you only make breakfast on Mother's Day, you know, or on Women's Day. You know, it's about being helpful and wanting to assist the people in your life. It really isn't just about romance. And, you know, I think the reason why it feels odd is because as a community, we haven't normalized it. It still seems like something that's so out of the blue. And really, we should think about how it's really not that odd. If you can wash the dishes the person eats with, you know, then, you know, what's so different about washing a blouse that they wore to wherever they went to, you get? So it's just understanding how the real cry for feminists is not that we fundamentally want to change you. We want you guys to be able, we want to live in a world where our feelings are taken into regard, and where we aren't oppressed and aren't made to feel less than you simply because you don't understand our role in this world, or you don't understand your role as a man. So yeah, I think, you know, what we were talking about right now, we were talking about toxic masculinity, and, you know, just these bad behaviors that come from a misunderstanding of what culture is, you know. And, you know, just to bring it back, if perhaps you somehow got lost in our conversation and how it relates to feminists, we were talking about, you know, what the feminist movement is trying to cry out about. And I think, given that this is an African youth program, we decided to speak about something more close to an African, our culture. You know, rather than focusing on Western and Eurocentric views of feminism, we rather wanted to focus on more African views of feminism and trying to achieve equality and equal treatment, not being oppressed within our cultures. Because essentially, I know a lot of women who want to practice their cultures, but feel they're too oppressive for them to even try. You know, it's not fair that in order to try and protect myself, I try to adopt Eurocentric and Western ideals, whereas I definitely want to be one with my culture, but I feel like my culture would simply oppress me. And I think it's an understanding of things like that that would make us, that would make a lot of Africans closer to their culture and closer to their roots. You know, having a culture that is a safe space, that doesn't oppress, and where people are actually treated with respect and dignity, you know. So we are almost at the end of our show. Like Happiness said, we have closed our live comments. So I just want to close off the show with a little bit of, you know, takeaway for Takatso. You know, what would you say to a feminist woman out there? What have you learned? You know, if there's something that you've learned, you can totally reflect on that. So yes.
My darling, do not don't get tired. I know the movement is tiring. There are days where you don't feel like being an activist, but don't get tired. Your effort, you're changing the world to be a better place. You're doing so much that just do not get tired. Do not get tired. One day we're gonna win, guys. Like one day we're gonna win. One day we're gonna be city girls. We're gonna be up. And I think we need to start coming out of our shells. We need to start talking more. We need to start asserting dominance more. Because guys, it's possible that we can all be dominant. I think it's possible. I don't think there's anyone who was made to be a submissive person. We can all be dominant. So I do hope we all step in our power. And the movement must not die, guys. Let's not dirty the movement. Let's keep it clean. Let's keep it going. One day it's gonna be fine.
Definitely hear you. Where are you able to reconnect? Are you able to hear us? All right, it appears we is unable to reconnect with us, but from my side, you know, I'd really just like to speak to all the women out there.
I think, yeah.
All right, yeah, we have Bui back. Yes, Bui.
Okay, let me just conclude, and dear audience, before I can wrap up my statement, guys, I'm so sorry about my network connection. I wish I was able to share my different opinions with you, but due to network connectivity, I wasn't able to do that. Okay, I would say today I learned a lot from you ladies, and I learned to be myself, to be bold enough, to be open enough, or to reflect what's inside me. I wish any young lady, a growing females could be able to open up, stand for themselves, know themselves better, and then, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bui. Yes, definitely. I think self-awareness, as we've spoken about to great lengths in this discussion, is very important. You know, for a woman, you should first be self-aware of yourself, and you should be able to understand the power that is in you. You know, in order for you to be able to speak up about receiving respect from men and from other women, you should be able to acknowledge for yourself that you are deserving of the respect. And so for every woman out there, it's really important, you know, as a feminist, whether you identify yourself with the movement or not, for whatever reason, it's important that you are able to see the value within yourself and see that you are definitely deserving of the respect. And it's very important, like we said, to be self-aware. You know, a woman is not identical to a man. You know, there are differences, there are similarities. And it's only in acknowledging differences and similarities between men and also between women themselves that we will be able to achieve anything within the feminist movement. So, you know, like we've been saying the whole episode, self-awareness is definitely the beginning of all good things, truly, be it within your mental health, be it with embracing your masculinity in a way that isn't toxic. It's very important to be self-aware, to acknowledge your shortcomings where they are and be intentional on working on them, because it does no use to acknowledge your shortcomings but have no intentions of working on them to better yourself. So from us, we'd really just love to hamper down on the fact that a person should be conscious in their everyday movements. You should be conscious as a man. Don't go and oppress another woman, be it consciously or subconsciously. And I think there are a lot of things that men do that are actually oppressing of women, but because they don't recognize it consciously, they feel that it's okay. So I'd really just love to challenge all men who are listening here, go back and reflect, kind of think about the things that you do, whether in any way it may be a mistreatment of women in a way that you see it or not. It's very important also to be able to listen to other people, because I think the reason that a lot of conversations with men and women fail when regarding feminism and the ideals we're trying to achieve is that the men are so quick to defend themselves. Take an opportunity to listen to what these women are saying. After listening to it, try to reflect on it before you give an opinion. Don't, the minute someone says feminism, try to raise your culture to defend the things that you do. Try to absorb what it's saying. Like we were talking about communication just earlier on. Communication isn't just speaking. So if we're going to come to a platform where, let's say, feminists are addressing males and they are so quick to speak, then we have not communicated. Communication requires listening and both, requires both talking and listening. You need to be able to hear the point that the other person is driving home before you can give us a response of your own. And so I'd really love to encourage open conversations about these issues. It shouldn't be something that is taboo. We should really be able to talk about it in a way that doesn't step on anybody's corns. It shouldn't be like this really sensitive topic. A person should be able to really just say, what you're doing isn't great. It isn't a good treatment of women or between men themselves. Like we've said in the initiation talk, that there were those men who were looking down on other men simply because they didn't go to initiation school. Toxic masculinity and femininity can be in both aspects, both towards men and women. It's in acknowledging these things that we would be able to achieve anything in our movements and attempts to improve. So we're almost at the end. I really just love to remind you guys that you're listening to Bay Waves on Bold Moves Radio, and we really hope that you've enjoyed our conversation. Please do subscribe to our YouTube page. You can find our videos there. You can find them on Facebook, so do like the page. Try tune in every Tuesday, 7 p.m. We are here and ready to listen to your views. But I still do have a few minutes to spare, and I know Tahato is such a gem. She's always got something amazing to share with us. So Tahato, any last words?
Guys, thank you for camping with us here. We're back here again next week we're still festive. It's still festive. Don't forget to send us money. Send me money, send happiness money, send me money by watching our videos. We are Bold Moves Radio on YouTube. We are Bold Moves Radio on Facebook. Share it, subscribe, and do watch. And I just want to say, guys, protect yourself, protect your mentals, protect your spiritual, protect yourself, no matter what it takes. If you have to cut people off, do that for your mental. If you have to cry, do cry. Just don't punch people. Do not punch people. We do not punch people. Do not punch people. Go to therapy, meditate, sing, do the dishes, just do anything to relieve yourself of the stress. Do not let, the world is rough, the world is negative. Don't let it consume you. Don't let it consume you. Take care of your emotions, take care of yourself, take care of those you care about, take care of those you love. Do not forget to sanitize and wear your masks. Guys, wear your mask and give each other social distance. Because in case you feel a person breathing on your neck, we're still in a pandemic. We're still in the pandemic, so do keep social distance and do vaccinate. Please do vaccinate, guys. You're not gonna die. I'm still standing, so please do vaccinate. But yeah, this has been an insightful episode. We're gonna do this again next Tuesday. I'm begging you guys. I'm begging you to watch, to connect, to do all those things with us. Guys, we love you. Like, we love chilling with you here. We love hearing what's on your mind. We love sharing what's on our minds too. So yeah, do tune in. Do not forget to tell your friends, tell your people to tell their people, and their people to tell their people. If you have a tender for us, tell us. And yeah, I love money.
Thank you so much, Takatso. Thank you so much to all our viewers. We really hope you enjoyed it. Enjoy your festive seasons. Please be safe. Drive on the road safe. Don't speed. Don't drink and drive. Please be responsible as you enjoy your festive season. We hope to see you again next week. Bye-bye. Good night.
Bye.